little bit late because we had some technical issues with my browser, and it did not want to let me hear our gorgeous Zoe. But we've made it. And before I say this is not a cocktail, this is sparkling water. I just really wanted to feel fancy today.
Why
I've been
not?
doing a little more of that. I've been having my drinks out of cocktail glasses because it makes days more
Well, look,
pretty.
it's nicer. Yeah. More fun.
So anyway, welcome to Zoe.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Zoe, as you know, we're here to talk about the differences in our chosen platforms. I'm
Yes.
Squarespace all the way, and I also fully endorse Shopify. You're a
Hmm.
WordPress gal, and
Yeah.
there's so many beautiful pros and cons to both going
Hmm.
either way, right?
Yeah.
And so this whole series is about how to know how to level up your own web experience, how to make your website and your home base better for yourself and easier to use, but also better for your end user and connecting with your community and creating that home base that a website should be, right? Like it's
Yeah.
the core
100%.
of all of your marketing should lead
Hmm.
back to this place called your website.
Yeah.
So, um, so before we get into it too far, do you want to introduce yourself?
So hello, yeah, no problem. I'm Zoe. My company is ZCM Digital, and I basically specialize in WordPress, creating new websites, revamps, training and support. I work with a variety of clients, small business owners, politicians to e-commerce, working on a government website, basically a whole range. And it's something I absolutely love doing. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Uh,
Very good. So before, like, tell me what you love about WordPress. Like, why, out of all the website designers, when you decided this is what you're going to do, did you go for
yeah.
WordPress?
Give you a bit of my backstory. So years and years ago, I did an IT degree, graduated in 2003. The exact same year, basically, WordPress was born. Back in the day, that was where I first fell in love with websites. Mine obviously was very much coded, so creating websites from scratch. And then throughout the years, I still always had an interest, but I went into the business development, marketing kind of world, and throughout the years, as much as I did, I worked on various platforms, creating, for companies I worked for. And I then decided it was 2019, I was made redundant. The company I was working for was, closed down. So I decided, what do I want to do with my life? And I actually spoke to a life coach, and she's like, what do you enjoy doing? I said, well, I've always had an interest in websites. And through my experience with basically, obviously, the websites back in my degree and working in the business environment, I sort of thought, listen, I want to upskill myself in something that really works for those business owners. People don't want to learn code. People don't want to create websites. It's just not, and it's a lot of money. So I basically upskilled myself in WordPress. I'll obviously get into more of the pros of WordPress a bit later on, but this is my reasoning. I had experience with WordPress through the company I was working for, and really, really enjoyed the flexibility of it and what it could offer. So I thought, you know what, this platform is ideal for the people I want to work with, and that's where it started. So
Very, very cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I have worked in so many, and so many of them are possibly really, really good as well for business owners starting out, because they're WordPress has possibly a wee bit of a learning curve over more so than others, but the flexibility and the power it can give is just incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there is a definitely like major pros and cons to both
Yeah.
sides, isn't there?
Oh, 100%. There's a pros and cons to everything, and it depends on people's budgets. It depends on what they want to achieve, the growth they want, what they're targeting, what the purpose of their website is. There's a lot of different things, and what works for one person will not work for another. But
Exactly.
in terms of what I love, I do love WordPress for the flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm like,
Anything.
as most people on this channel know,
Yeah.
all in for Squarespace. I
Hmm.
most people, I don't even know, because I don't think I ever did an intro video when I just started doing tutorials. So most people on this channel
Yeah.
might not even know what I got into
Okay.
Squarespace.
Well, you introduce yourself then.
So
So,
yeah,
just in
I'm
case
Ellie.
you
Most
messed
people
up.
on the channel know me as a Squarespace and systems
Mhm.
obsessed person. Like that's
Mhm.
and so I got into Squarespace because I had also designed websites all the way through, never professionally, don't have a degree, anything like that. But I had made so many Weebly sites when I was a teenager
Yeah.
for anything and everything. I actually still have a Weebly site somewhere in the ether from when I was an au pair. So from my backpacking
Wow.
travels. And it was, I wouldn't ever have said I was like a travel blogger, but it was a really easy way to just update my whole family at the same time.
Yeah.
Be like,
Yeah.
here's a link.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that. And so I've always loved design and color and creating
Yeah.
complex informational structures in a really pretty and comprehensive and really easy to use way. Um, so that's more where I came at it from. And I started my business first as a tech virtual assistant. And
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of system setups and system integration and simplification for businesses. And I still do those things in a different capacity. But I realized when I left my full time job, I was really, really overwhelmed. I had too many bitty pieces of work. So
Mm.
I had already been building websites for clients as a VA.
Yeah.
It's something that, once you're techie and design savvy, people ask you to do. And
Yeah.
I built my own website twice over
Mhm.
for my business and just thought, you know what, like, let's do this. It's project based, it's higher value. So it was something that really
Yeah.
made sense for me. And in the 3 or 4 years since I've done that, I've now built hundreds of websites and probably just over 100 websites. And it's been a really, really good. But the reason I love Squarespace is, it's got that almost no learning curve. It's gotten a little more complicated in the last couple of years because they've introduced Fluid Engine, but that offers a lot more flexibility than it used to have.
Mhm.
Um, and you used to really have to go down the Shopify route if you wanted to do e-commerce, and a similar kind of what you see is what you get platform. But Squarespace in the last, like, say 3 years has been really hauling ass on trying to get some better e-commerce features out there. Like, it was one thing if you sold a few hand bits of things, but they're really, really killing it lately in offering various different ways to be paid for your
Yeah.
expertise. So I just love it because, again, I don't really like those little tiny bitty pieces of work. So I knew from the get-go that I wasn't going to be offering maintenance packages. And
Yeah.
this was something that I could provide tutorials for my clients and be like, there you go, there's your website, have it. I
Yeah.
don't want to touch it for a while. And obviously I do offer maintenance, but it's typically bigger pieces of work than the
Yeah.
small
Like
things.
revamps up new pages, things like that.
Yeah, adding courses, or I offer power
Mhm.
hours for if people get stuck or want to, you know, um, tackle a few things at once.
Yeah.
But I don't really do the day-to-day maintenance. So
Yeah. It's actually quite funny because you're saying I was starting out as a VA. I actually probably omitted that part because I keep forgetting that when I started out, I was like VA with websites. Obviously the VA part was a bit more. It was a bit more sort of like digital brochures, tiny wee bit of sort of social media, graphics, things like that. But literally the website part just took off in 2020 and everything else just didn't have time for.
it's funny. In 2020 is when I fully dedicated to
Yeah,
websites as well.
yeah. And it's great. I
Um,
love it. It's it is it's fabulous. Like it's I know you probably feel the same, but one of the things I love most about my jobs is the fact that every website I do is different and learning like somebody else's business or somebody else's goals. I find it so fascinating. Like it's
yeah,
you learn like just what other people do, and I just love that.
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
I love getting to be behind the scenes, and I think that's why I
yeah,
love systems business, like my systems work as well. But
yeah.
I love getting to see how other people's businesses tick, and setting things up in the
Oh
back end of
yes.
their business is a big chunk of that.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's start with some of the best features of WordPress. Tell me all about it.
Okay. Okay, well, the first things first, obviously, now when I refer to WordPress, I am obviously talking about .org, not .com. Bit of a background, there's the main difference is .com is the one it's hosted and .org is self-hosted. .org is basically completely open source, it's completely free. You do not pay for anything unless you obviously opt for like the pro plugins, and the only other payment you have to make is your hosting. So in a lot of ways, I have a lot of clients who were on Shopify who have come to me because their monthly rates have skyrocketed because they've got so many products, whereas they don't get charged for that. It's all free. To use a WordPress, they maybe pay, say, £11 a month hosting, and that's it. So that's probably one of the main things as well. And one of the things I spoke about earlier was the flexibility. You could start out and have a WordPress website that you're maybe talking a wee bit of information about yourself, and you're giving blogs, you're helping people, and you get a really good following, and you get really sort of maybe high up in Google. And then people realize, you're giving all this information, you can add on your online shop and sell these courses then you can add on something else. It's that flexibility. You can turn a blogging website into a full-on e-commerce website, into learning management system, into anything you want. So, that's the second thing. And the highest thing would probably be flexibility, then the low ease, the low cost. Basically, the other thing I love as well, WordPress, you own your site. You can take it off anywhere, whereas some of the other platforms, if they decide to close, your website's gone. You can't move your site. You can't move your site to somewhere else to have it. You'd have to rebuild it, start from scratch. Another thing is the fact that obviously there's I think this last statistic is 43% of all websites in the world are built with WordPress. So there's a complete wide variety of people out there who have severe interests in it, and you can find anything you want. If you get stuck, you just look online. There's so much help. And if you want any plugin, they're out there. And so many people are invested in creating these free plugins. Obviously, some of the pro paid plugins are amazing as well. But yeah, it just depends what you want. So that would be sort of my main sort of favorite things about it. Obviously, the other thing being search engine optimization, SEO. I will obviously talk a bit more about that later, but there's so much, that WordPress is so out of the box, is very SEO friendly, and there's so much you can add with it that's very, very good. But that would be the pros. That would be my top pros anyway.
Okay. And I think it's going to be easier if you go through your cons and then I go through my pros and cons, because I think
Perfect. We'll do that.
Yeah. So what do you think the cons of
So
WordPress?
the main cons, I think, well, obviously it's a wee bit of a learning curve. Now the way I set up my sites for my clients, that they can very easily update it themselves, because obviously I'm giving them a user guide. But it's I use the set of plugins I use, make it very, it's like a drag and drop. It's very much like using the likes of Squarespace, then go on and change things just on a page. They don't have to be very, into like have big knowledge at all. So that would be the sort of easy use is probably the term I'm looking for, a bit of a learning curve. The second thing would be the fact that you do have to maintain it quite regularly. So the security, now it is very good at security. I use a plugin which is amazing, WordFence, and my websites have never had any issues. But you need to be on top of it, because again, people are cyber attacks. It's a very well-known thing, and if you don't keep up to date with keeping those plugins secure, then your website's at high risk of being attacked. And I suppose there is because it's open source, it's probably a wee bit more open to that than some other platforms. But at the same time, as long as you keep it updated, it's super secure. But you have to keep it updated.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's the only cons I can think
You're in love. I get
it. And they can totally deal with them. Especially if I'm working with you, it's fine.
Yeah. So for me, Squarespace Pros, it's so easy to use. At this stage, it's highly customizable. You can build the whole thing without a single inch of code. I obviously customize a few bits and pieces with code for my websites. I can add in lots. There is no security issues at all. Like you have world-class customer support through Squarespace, but also through the community. So the Circle community is like next. I've never seen anything like it. And there's, like I'd say most software, but there are experts out there that are just giving away their knowledge for free. I mean, like I do it, but I'm not. There are people out there that are like that have been using this tool for the 20 years that it's been started.
Yeah.
Funny enough, it's the same time frame. Squarespace
That's
is
WordPress.
celebrating its birthday this year as
Ah,
well.
I did not know that. There you go. Learn something new every day.
And yeah, so it's really, really good that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are probably my biggest things is like you don't need to know code. You don't really need to know much of anything. Probably I think the other thing is so there are no plugins as such. There's nothing to break. There's no security to worry about.
Yeah.
There are extensions you can use, but mostly that's other fully fledged software. It's not like a little snippet of software. It's like if you want to your e-commerce to talk to your Etsy, to talk to your Amazon shop, you can use a software that adds into that, but you're not really doing little bits and pieces as such. There is, code. There are also beautiful big code libraries. So if you're no code, you can go to places like Ghost Plugins and get one little piece of something to do something you want, or probably what was I going to say? Oh, like if you just need, there's this thing. There's another cool plugin place. It's just gone off the top of my head. I use it all the time to embed people's Google reviews on the website because it makes really nice, pretty sliders. Elfsight makes really nice.
Yes, I've actually used that as well.
Yes, yeah, it's not just for Squarespace. It's all but you can. What I'm saying is add code, but there's absolutely no reason to. So cons. Up until recently, the e-commerce was crap. It's still sort of crap if you're outside the US. It's getting better. It really is getting better, but that's why when I have people with, I'd say anything more than like 50 products, I send them down the Shopify route, because if you're trying to do weight-based, like your shipping and stuff and all those taxes and all those things, it just becomes easier to use that. It also allows you for a lot more flexibility as far as all of your sales channels and things like that. It's a lot more of a nightmare to connect Instagram shopping or whatever in Squarespace. It's possible, but it's actually so much easier in Shopify.
Well, Shopify, I suppose, was created for.
Exactly. They've kind of grown towards each other a little bit, right? So Shopify was definitely started for e-commerce, and Squarespace was definitely started for blogging, and they've kind of grown towards each other. But they still mostly play to their strengths. Squarespace is really, really growing, which I love. There's new features coming out all the time. Now, as a Squarespace educator, that becomes a little bit of a nightmare because
you
video you create last week can be
but the same as plugins. It's I'm very much of a advocate of Elementor for my clients on the sites, and they have went through phenomenal change this year, especially. So I'm having to train myself and take time out to make sure I'm up to date, because then my clients are getting the best service. Because if I'm sitting here not getting up to date, they don't.
Yeah, I know. So when Squarespace has been through two big changes in the last 3-ish years. So they went from 7.0 to 7.1, which is their new editor or new version of the site entirely. And then they went from classic editor within 7.1 to now Fluid Engine, which is classic editor was kind of like you had a grid, things could only sit in a certain number of ways. You had to add negative space or spacer blocks. But now things, you can lay them over each other and under each other, and there's so much more that you can do. Lots of things we were doing with code in the past, like maybe specific text highlights or changing the color of one word in a phrase, or the font of one word in a phrase, is all pretty much available just natively now. But when it first came out, I hated it. I hated Fluid Engine when it first came out. And like you said, my first few sites that I designed after it came out, I just didn't use it. And then I did have to upskill and learn, because I can't be putting my clients on a software that's being dated. Like, you can't do that. You need to
100%.
future-proof your clients. So
Yeah.
now I love it. My own site's on Fluid Engine now.
Yeah. And have you any more? Like, do you think there's any more sort of cons at all with Squarespace?
Squarespace is con. I mean, you're right. There's no portability, really. You can export, say, your blogs and put them in WordPress or something, but you cannot export your whole site and put it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think other than e-commerce and that, I think I'm trying to think if there's any other.
Do you find, like, with SEO or anything, do you find it?
So Squarespace out of the box is fairly good for SEO as well. They've also really, over the last little bit, added some new features in that really help with that. And now there is actually, as of just this year, a third-party tool similar to Yoast that allows you to really level up your. It like scans everything. It's called SEO Space. I'm an affiliate. I'll drop a link below because it's so cool. I've used it on my site, client sites. It helps scan your metadata and helps scan all of your images and make sure every single one isn't too big, or and make sure they all have alt text. And it does lots and lots of
keeps you on track.
Really keeps you on track. And I can't say I've ever heavily focused that much intention on my own site for SEO until this year. I've done things sort of that help with SEO sort of through other veins, because being an entrepreneur, you end up doing those things. I've submitted myself for awards and press releases and got backlinks and kind of all of these. I blog and all this stuff. So I do things that are SEO positive, but I've never been very intentional with my SEO for myself. Clients are another story.
Yeah, well, that's it. To find the time for all this. Good.
But yeah, I guess the only other thing I should say that probably is a big difference between Squarespace and WordPress is, I'm going to say Squarespace is known for being quite slow comparatively.
Okay.
You're loading a lot of code when you're putting up. So if somebody is out in the middle of nowhere with shit phone signal, your website might take a while to load.
Yeah.
If you add custom code on top of that, or adding jQuery for a specific weird feature you've asked for, it can take even longer. It's not like it's not noticeably slow to the human consumer, I'd say, but for SEO purposes, it would be slower than most WordPress sites.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably my last con.
The last con.
But there are a million moving parts to SEO.
Of course there is. Yeah.
Speed is just one. So you can do very well even having like a moderately slow website. Just gotta be transparent there.
Well, that's true. That is true.
So obviously you've talked about how WordPress is so flexible.
Yeah.
So it being so flexible and having like almost half of websites in the world built on this.
Yeah.
The next question might sound funny, but I still think it merits.
Yeah.
Who do you think WordPress is for?
I think WordPress is literally for anyone. For business owners, bloggers. As I said, like, I'm doing a government website. I've 2 construction websites. An e-commerce website. These are all ones I've got on the go. It is literally for anyone, and that's why, again, one of the pros of WordPress, it is so flexible, and I just would not rule out any purpose for WordPress.
Have you ever had somebody come up to you and you thought, actually, you're a better fit for, say, Squarespace or Wix or Shopify?
I haven't, no, because literally, when my clients come, anyone comes with sort of any questions, or they're wanting this or that, they may just want a really small website, but that can be built very, very easily in WordPress and very easily maintained, and then they have that sitting there for them to grow in the future, whatever way they want, because the flexibility is sitting there. It's ready to go. It's so flexible. It can do anything for them in the future. It's like anything. Like one thing, I think people's minds change throughout so many years, but a website, once it is created, is not to stay like that. That's not what websites are intended for. A website is a constant changing, evolving thing that should be the center of any business. It should be the center of your marketing campaigns. It should, like, literally, if your website is not, it's not designed well, it's not functioning, it's not performing well, you have issues, because you will lose out, whether it comes to SEO. Someone, like, literally, you look for anything now, you either search for it online or you go onto their website to check information. And if you go onto a site that looks absolutely awful, you're just going, oh, jeepers, I'm not sure about this company. I'll just go to
it makes them feel sketchy or
yes.
Yeah.
And, and like even websites from 5 years ago will now be dated. I'm working on websites from 5 years ago. People hadn't touched them in 5 years. And you're just like, oh, it looks, you can tell the difference because there's different trends. It's like, there's obviously, I could go into whole different things of what's better practice and all the rest of it now. But, something that was maybe 5 years ago wasn't as good practice as it is now. And you can tell a website is out of date.
Yeah, you totally can, but because it's a combination of trends and then the fact of evolution of software and the ability that websites have.
Yeah, and even like
used to have, even down to code, like CSS grid, relatively new thing, right? So the ability to drag and drop things around with code or without, in platforms that have been based on CSS grid, like Squarespace Fluid Engine, you didn't have that option that long ago.
Yeah, no. So honestly, I don't see that. To me, WordPress is a one for all. Like, I just, I do see if somebody who's out there wanting to create their own site and they are starting from scratch and they literally do not have time to, create it, learn or pay. I don't have the money to pay anyone to do it. Pick an easier platform. A lot of people tend to, in my experience, go for, like, a lot of them. Is it still Weebly? Is that the one that's on, like, GoDaddy, or is it their GoDaddy Builder? Like, just one of those, like,
yeah. A lot of people, I think Square has bought Wix now.
Okay.
Or partnered with Wix. I don't actually know. I know a lot of people will end up on one platform that doesn't fit them and transfer around.
Transfer. I could do a lot of transfers. Like,
I've done a lot of transfers as well.
And I am rebuilding, the free ones that come with a template, that basically, are just a very quick build and are very straightforward, or maybe okay for short term. I don't really like to say that because I really don't think they are. But, for someone who doesn't have the time or the money, then maybe. But, there's so much out there in terms of, even for WordPress, if you're starting out, there's a website, WP Beginner, I think that's what you call it. And it's brilliant. It's a really good starting resource. That's where I started when I decided to really upskill in WordPress. And then I did a bit more sort of obviously online courses as well. And then I sort of went on to courses in different plugins, such as like Elementor. But yeah. Anyway, well, I sort of went off on a wee tangent there.
So
but WordPress is
for everyone, but if you're a DIYer, it might be better to start on another place. Maybe if you're not, if you're feeling a little tech overwhelmed or something.
Yeah, if you can DIY it, 100%.
I'd say I've had, and I know this goes both directions, so like I'm not, but I've had quite a few clients that have come from WordPress because I mean, there's a million themes, there's a million, so there's lots of things. But I would say most people have come because they feel like their website is inaccessible almost to them. It's too difficult to work with, or they feel like it doesn't look the way they want it to look, and that making a pretty website and making changes to a pretty website feels easier in something like Squarespace.
Well, I get that too. People come from WordPress. They're obviously still all in WordPress, but whoever built their initial website has built it in a certain way that is not at all user-friendly. It's not easy to update. It doesn't look good. And, I'm then doing a revamp. you know, and to be
Mhm.
honest, a lot of them are rebuilds because they've been built so badly with maybe 50 plugins when you can build it with 8. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm
there's
saying this with no disrespect, not to you, but to the
yeah,
people out there in
yeah,
the
yeah,
world watching this.
100%.
But we're two women who
Yeah,
design websites. That's not like hyper common. And especially where we
yeah,
live, the
yeah,
standard website designer is probably an older
yeah,
white fella who builds
yeah,
websites on WordPress and is building them the same way he learned 20 years ago.
yeah,
So there is like, and that's not a worldwide problem. I don't think
yeah,
that's a very
no,
specific Northern Ireland problem.
yeah,
But I can understand how that's definitely something you're coming across as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to it's to be honest, I haven't really met that many. There's maybe one I've met a networking event. Now he's lovely, and I've actually put work his way because there's times I'm just so busy and I'm just like, listen,
Mhm.
talk to this guy, he'll sort you out. But yeah, it's a
Yeah. No, and I'm not
I
saying
get
that
a lot of
all
complaints.
men
Yeah, yeah.
designers are like
No,
this either.
100%.
I'm just saying
Um,
that there's
that's the trend you're seeing in within Northern Ireland. That's quite interesting, actually.
I also think
It's
the people who are those types of website developers
yeah.
are not probably the same ones going to networking events like and show
Well, that is
like
true.
they're not
That is
marketing in
true.
that way.
Yeah. I think,
Um,
as you know yourself, when you come to a website, it's like being a designer, that's fine. There's certain people who are technical who can do
mhm.
websites, that's fine. But, it's getting that balance between the technicals, the creativity of the design, and obviously bringing the content and that message out there in that design, and obviously considering the likes of the SEO and exactly what that website's looking to do. There's loads of people out there, as you say, and I think you've probably generalized a lot of people who will just put a website up there. And I have had people come to me, and they've just been like websites that have been created from templates that have been bought. And I know that's another thing that I wholly advise anyone with WordPress is to use lightweight themes. I only ever use 2 themes, and I build from scratch.
Mm.
But there's a lot of people who will pay the money to buy these premium things, and there's no need. And they could stop being supported. There's if you start off with the lightweight theme and build around that theme, you can customize it any way you want, and it's so much more future proof.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting world out there that this with the web thing.
it is. No, it certainly is.
Yeah. I think I had a thought. It's gone, but it was essentially around
Mm.
um
It's me going off on a tangent again.
about um about updates and things. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about maintaining a site. So
Okay.
with Squarespace, you don't, I mean, granted, you're right. You should be updating it. It's good for SEO. It keeps your
Yeah.
website from going out of date. But as far as security and those things, plugins, you're not going to have any issues.
Okay.
Talk to me a little
Mm.
bit more about that as far as WordPress goes.
Okay, yeah. So with WordPress, you've got the WordPress core, you've got themes, and you've got plugins, and all of them need updated. Now, you could have a plugin that has like a thing coming out maybe on a weekly basis, fortnightly, maybe not as often, but it's basically all that they work together to make it obviously work. So what I do generally, it's like Apple. When Apple, if anyone has an Apple phone and they get like a software update,
Mhm.
that's exactly how I would sort of describe how the plugin updates work. And there are times you might get one and go, oh, we'll send out another one tonight because there was a bit of a bug in that. So I generally, with any update, I kind of try to leave it for a week or two, unless it's security. I will always update that straight away. But yeah, it's very easily done. You literally just, obviously one thing, and I always say this to my clients, make sure you have a backup, because there are times when you carry out updates and you've got all these different pieces of software, and if there's any issues within that update, something might happen. But if you have a backup, you just restore, and then you can figure out which one caused the issue. And again, that is very, very rare, especially the way like I build sites, because I build plugins that work really, really well together. Um, but it can happen. So
Yeah.
that is probably the downside, as I said earlier. But at the same time, it's very easy to do to keep things updated.
Yeah.
Um, In terms of updating, obviously, as again you were saying, updating content is extremely important. Updating the look of your website and just making sure everything's working.
Okay, cool. So talk about, so this is something that probably one of the biggest differences between Squarespace and Shopify versus WordPress as well is hosting. Like,
Yeah,
it's honestly a world that I don't fully understand because I don't
yeah,
work within WordPress. I know every once in a while something will come up in a group I'm in. They'll be like, I hate the hosting people I'm with. What do I do? Or a lot of people that
okay,
are migrating from WordPress or other places have a hosting package. And then it's a
yeah,
bit of a nightmare to untangle because usually their email hosting is kind of tied into that, but they want to
yeah,
cancel all of the other hosting. And it's a whole bit of a nightmare on my end of things, to be honest. But tell
yeah.
us about hosting, because for those of you who don't know, Squarespace, you don't pay hosting. It's all built in.
Okay. Well, hosting is obviously you choose a company to basically house your website. Um, So you can have your domain and your hosting in one place, or you could have your domain separate, your email separate, and your website hosted completely separate as well. Whatever works for certain people. Like the likes of me, I have actually only started recently. Like I have done a lot of hosting with people with maintenance, and I still do, but I've only started my own hosting package, which is £99 a year. So like it's less than £10 a month. You know what I mean? And that's your website completely hosted. And it does not include your domain because I believe every person should own their domain, and they
Me
should not
too.
let a web designer purchase your domain because what if you fall out? What if they go out of business? You should always have your own domain. But yeah, I'll just underline that. But then yeah, so if you don't obviously host with your web designer and you want to go out there, my highest recommendation is with SiteGround. They are absolutely fabulous. I cannot rate them highly enough. They free SSL. The support 24 hours is just incredible. Speed wise, they're very good. Their servers, they've got obviously servers local to here. The servers in the US, I think it's like over 5 continents they have servers in. So, but I think they're absolutely phenomenal, and they have a built-in plugin that you can actually use, which helps with optimizing for speed, which again is brilliant. So yeah, I highly recommend them, and I think their package is something like £65 for the first year, and then £11.99 a month after, and that's it. That's all you pay for your website. And then obviously, if you can pay for this sort of more pro plugins, but generally a lot of people can get away with paying nothing.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, and obviously Squarespace is gonna like cost difference. It is more
yeah,
expensive to use Squarespace. Shopify can get extortion if you're,
yeah,
because I have clients that are also paying for in-store point of sale systems with them and all
yeah,
sorts, and it really can add up.
yeah,
But Squarespace isn't really, I'd say, that much more expensive, but it is more expensive because you're paying for them to have built and do all the maintenance and to do all the security and all of
yeah.
the hosting. They're doing all that. So it's a little bit more than you having to kind of piece it all together yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'd say it's really handy if you feel overwhelmed with those things and maybe you're DIYing or you're DIY maintaining. So like my clients,
Yeah,
they don't DIY their websites, but they DIY maintain maintenance for the
maintenance.
most
Yeah,
part.
do their own.
And so, yeah, it's a very different world, the way we do things. It's so like, and we've come into it from totally different angles, but with very similar
Yeah,
reasonings. It's such
yeah.
a wild thing, in
There's
my
just
opinion.
it's yeah. There's like yeah. It's I suppose there's just everybody's out there at different things, and you do find people will prefer different methods as well. So
Oh yeah, yeah, and I
it
mean that's
definitely
why
is a
there are different
preference.
methods, right? It's because
Yeah,
people
yeah.
there's a taste out there for something else.
Oh, it is 100%.
Exactly. Like we would have monopolies if it weren't for people being like, I want to do things a different way, or this tool
Yeah,
is me better.
exactly.
All right. So I guess the last thing I want to talk about is, so this whole series is going to be talking about all the different ways to unlock your website's
Yeah.
success. And we
Hmm.
both know, because this is what we
Yeah,
do, that
yeah.
like the core of your business is your website, right?
100%.
Because it's where your traffic point is, how people find you when they search you on Google.
Yeah,
It's where your most consistent messaging will be.
yeah,
It's where they're gonna take that next step most likely with you. If you, whether that be booking a call or buying your
yeah,
thing or whatever. Any other thoughts on your website being your home base?
Yeah, well, obviously it helps save time. It can do a lot for your business. It can basically, this is one of the thing, in terms of even all your frequently asked questions, your booking systems, like it can be an integral part of your, like it can basically be your best salesperson 24 hours a day. Like you will not get a better salesperson who works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Do you know what I mean? And that is basically it. You nail your website, someone's selling for you 24 hours a day. And, imagine the time you save not having to network. And that's what I focused on. Now I've focused on a very heavily sort of local market, and I will go wider. But, with my SEO, I get a lot of people working, looking for web designers in Belfast. And they come on, and I'm like, I think organically I'm number 1 or 2 at the minute. I get a lot of inquiries through that way. And it's great, because they tend to convert quite, the people who come through from Google, because that's what they're searching for. They want a web designer, and they want a web designer in Belfast. They find me, click me, get in touch with my form. And then generally, like, it's happened quite a few times where I've got to book them within 4 hours. Do you know what I mean? So it literally is 24 hours, 7 days a week salesperson if you get it right.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And again, like, and you'll obviously know with the systems again, and being able to include systems and being able to include information, that time saving, like having booking systems, scheduling, like literally, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Having it, what I consider your website to be is the front facing place that your systems live. It's where they face your clients, whether that be, and your systems in my head, there's a million of them, but that's your customer communication. That is your booking system, your purchasing system, like all those things that happen in your business to make it move, your marketing, like your website is the face of all of that.
It's so central. It's, people who think, oh, we'll just pay, get this wee website up, leave it. No, it's like, no,
I know.
It has to be the most important thing. Yeah.
I know that's what this website series is because I end up with a lot of people who come to me over the years, and not to be rude at all, not all of them do their homework in advance, right?
Yeah.
And to have your website be the very, very best it can be. And yes, we've talked about websites grow and evolve, and they always should. And so you don't have to go into a website perfectly. Like there's no such thing as perfectly anyway. But a lot of people come to me and maybe they want their website to be up here, but they've done the homework for their website being here. And that means their copywriting, their photography, their, messaging, or, just other pieces of content. So we are going to be talking about throughout the rest of the series. We have a video expert coming on. We have a copywriter coming on. We have a blogger, a podcaster. We have marketing experts talking about all these pieces that make your website really, really thrive. So very excited.
It's very exciting. That's very, definitely a really, really good series. And I hope people actually watch it, and get really a lot of it, because it's really good. It's a really good idea. I think a lot of people, need to learn a bit more about what actually does, what benefits they're getting from their website and what they should be doing, because it's not a tick box. It's not, I need a website, put it up, and that's it. It's not like that. And people need to be,
you can do that, but it's not going to be.
It's not going to do anything for you.
Right. It's not going to be effective for you that way.
Yeah.
And
everything is so central.
Exactly. And when you're a business owner, you really have to think so strategically.
Yeah.
And it can be a really strategic, and it should be a really strategic piece of your business.
100%.
Yeah.
And then you've also got, obviously we've said about all the benefits, but people, even that, what's that term, the passive income term, you'd be selling things while you're sleeping on your website,
Oh yeah, I've done it. I had on my YouTube channel, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, somebody just watched a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And then immediately the comments underneath, this is exactly what I was looking for. And then in my description for all my YouTube videos about Squarespace, there's a thing where it says, want some extra help, book a link to my here, or book a power hour. And it's got a link to my power hours. She then immediately booked a power hour. So I just was like, I woke up and was like, oh, fun, money made in my sleep. And of course, then I paid that service. Perfect. But that's such an easy win for my business. A little bit of
Yeah.
extra income, a little bit of education, a little bit of helping somebody out. And I love,
Yeah.
love doing it.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So tell people where they can find you.
Okay, right. My website is zcmdigital.com.
For you Americans out there, that's ZCM digital. Z is in zipper.
Yeah. I know. I actually was going to do the alphabet thing, but I thought it was best not. I don't know how to spell it out. I'm so bad at doing that actually. I was going to say it for Zoe. I'm so bad. I need to learn it. I do.
I don't know the phonetic alphabet either, and my husband is constantly harping on me about it. That's another video, but my husband's a hobby pilot, and so he's always radioing, and you're
very
like,
good. Yeah.
Anywho.
Very good. But yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so they find you on your website, which is ZCM Digital or ZCM, depending on where you're at in the world.
Yeah.
And do you have any next steps you'd like people to take, blogs or resources or other things that you'd like?
Yeah, well, I do have, I have a full blog section on my website, which contains a lot of website tips. And there's a lot there, from hosting to SEO to content to design. It's all in there there's certain areas, so you can just click and basically learn. I like to try to do this.
I love that. I love a good system, and I love I love how, I think the thing about good website design, and most people don't know that this is what is good website design when you're just an average user, but it's not that it's just that it's pretty, it's that it's easy to use, easy to, it's accessible, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly,
making all of that content, all of that data really well structured and easy to access is it's an art, and I love it.
It's one thing I love too. It's getting that right.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me.
These will go on the podcast and such, and I'll share everything with you when it.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very happy I was your first guest on this series.
All right.
Perfect. Chat soon.